Hello everyone. Thank you for watching the video. Wishing you all good health and peace. Dieu Han, a pitiable 17-year-old girl, held her baby in her arms, her eyes filled with fear, tears streaming down her pale face. Her husband, after having an affair with another woman, had beaten her and thrown her out of the house. On the uneven red dirt road, she wore a brown coat and wrapped herself in a red shawl, clutching her 6-month-old child tightly. She walked hurriedly, her eyes filled with terror, her face exhausted and drained. Her dazed eyes stared ahead as a deserted shack appeared in the distance. She approached, slipped through the worn-out wooden door, and carefully placed her child in a corner. Brushing back her sweat-drenched hair, she opened her bag. Inside was only a hastily thrown pack of instant noodles. She tore open the package, breaking off small pieces and chewing slowly, eating while watching her little one squirm in her arms. The baby started to cry. Dieu Han quickly pulled down her blouse to nurse, but her meager milk was not enough to soothe the child. Before she could rest, a man entered, his face full of irritation. He looked around, spotted Dieu Han and the baby, and immediately shouted, "What are you doing in my house? Get out!" Startled, she clutched her baby tightly, her eyes pleading, "Please, just for one night. I have nowhere else to go." The man showed no sympathy. He yanked her basket away and threw it outside. The pack of noodles tumbled to the ground, her belongings scattered. With no other choice, Dieu Han picked up her baby and ran, tears streaming down her face. Dieu Han held her baby tightly against her chest, dragging her weary steps along the dusty red dirt road. Her old, worn-out sandals were caked in dust, each step feeling like she was dragging the weight of despair itself. Her stomach growled with hunger, her body weak and drained. She opened her last packet of instant noodles, breaking it into small pieces and chewing dryly. The baby wailed loudly from hunger. She hurriedly pulled down her blouse to nurse, but only a few meager drops of milk came out. The infant sucked desperately, but there was little to take in. The tiny face wrinkled with distress, small hands flailing helplessly in the air. Dieu Han held her child even closer, gently trying to soothe the baby, but inside her heart was breaking. Ahead, a wooden house stood with light glowing faintly through the window. Summoning all her courage, she stepped forward and knocked on the door, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please, sister. Let my baby and me stay just for one night." The door creaked open, revealing a middle-aged woman with a frown. She looked Dieu Han up and down before shaking her head coldly. "My house is not a shelter for strangers. Go away." Before Dieu Han could say another word, the door slammed shut in her face. She bit her lip hard, swallowing her pain. Turning away, she wiped the tears from her eyes and kept walking. She approached another house, knocking hesitantly, clinging to a fragile sliver of hope. This time, a different woman answered, her expression wary. Dieu Han pleaded desperately, "Please, just one night. We'll leave first thing in the morning." The woman frowned, glancing at the baby in Dieu Han's arms, then waved her away. "No, leave now. My house is not a charity." With that, she slammed the door shut, leaving Dieu Han frozen in place. She hugged her child even tighter, lowered her head, and quietly walked away. Her legs trembled, her breathing was labored, but she had no choice but to keep moving. No one would help her. No one would take her in. All she had left was the road ahead, though she had no idea where it would lead. Dieu Han held her child tightly against her chest, her steps slow and heavy on the rugged dirt road. A gentle breeze rustled through the trees, the sound of leaves whispering in the stillness of the night. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed through the air. A weak, trembling cry, barely audible over the wind. She stopped, straining her ears to listen. The cry was not loud, but it carried fear and distress. Looking ahead, she spotted a young boy sprawled on the ground, his electric scooter lying on its side nearby. Her heart pounded as she rushed over, carefully placing her child down before kneeling beside the boy. "Are you okay?" she asked softly, gently shaking him. The boy whimpered, his eyes red and filled with tears streaming down his young face. It hurts, my leg hurts," he sobbed. Dieu Han glanced down and saw his scraped knees and elbows, blood seeping through the dirt on his skin. Without hesitation, she quickly plucked some nearby leaves, chewed them into a paste, and carefully applied it to his wounds to stop the bleeding. "Shoo, it's okay. I'll help you," she soothed him, her voice calm and reassuring. The boy bit his lip, trying to suppress his cries, his small hands clutching the fabric of her shirt as if seeking safety. With no bandages available, Dieu Han removed her hat, tore a piece of cloth from it, and gently wrapped his injured arm with great care. "There, it's all better now," she said softly, lifting her gaze to meet his tearful eyes. "Where do you live?" "I'll take you home," she asked gently. The boy sniffled, his wet eyes looking up at her, and gave a small nod. "My house, it's nearby." Dieu Han nodded back, wasting no time. She secured her baby snugly in the cloth against her chest, then bent down and carried the boy on her back. Step by step she trudged forward, her frail figure carrying two small children as they silently moved through the night. As they reached the gate of a house, the boy stirred slightly and murmured, "Dad!" Before Dieu Han could react, the door suddenly swung open, and a tall, slender man rushed out. "My son!" he called, his voice filled with worry, his eyes darting to the wounds on the boy's limbs. Without hesitation, he swiftly lifted the child from Dieu Han's back, carrying him into the yard with care. "What happened to you?" he asked urgently. The boy sniffled and mumbled, "I fell off my scooter. She saved me." At that moment, the man finally looked at Dieu Han. His expression flickered with surprise before quickly shifting to gratitude. "Thank you for helping my son," he said sincerely. Dieu Han simply nodded, checking the boy's bandages one last time before taking a step back. "It was nothing. I'm just glad he's okay." The man continued to study her, as if wanting to ask something but hesitated. Dieu Han understood. He didn't know who she was or where she had come from, but she didn't want to explain. Not because she was afraid, but because she was used to the wary gazes of strangers. She forced a small weary smile. After leading Lai Nin to retrieve his scooter from the accident site, she bowed her head slightly. "I'll be going now." Lai Nin didn't know, and could never have imagined, that the woman who had just saved his child had nowhere to call home. Dieu Han walked slowly along the red dirt road, her eyes fixed on a dilapidated bamboo hut standing alone in the middle of the wild forest. Stepping inside, she found it completely bare. The roof was riddled with holes, the bamboo walls had gaps where the panels had come loose, and the dirt floor was covered in dried leaves. But this was the only place she could take shelter. She carefully placed her baby in a corner, pulling a scarf over the child to keep warm, then set to work fixing up the place. She gathered fallen bamboo sticks and carefully wedged them into the gaps in the walls to block the wind. She propped up the loose door frame, using a sturdy branch as a makeshift latch. She picked up and tacked dried leaves and patched up the leaking roof, though she knew it would still drip when it rained. After some time, the hut looked a little less abandoned, at least enough to offer some protection from the elements. Holding her baby close, she whispered softly, "We have a home now." But hunger quickly pulled her back to reality. She left the hut and walked along the edge of the forest, searching for food. Suddenly, she spotted a lemon bush heavy with ripe fruit, the plump green lemons hanging in clusters. She picked as many as she could, filling her basket while thinking, "I can sell these at the market." Along the way, she also gathered a few wild vegetables before heading back to the hut. The next morning, Dieu Han packed her basket of lemons, secured her baby snugly against her chest, and walked to the marketplace. She spread out a cloth on the ground, arranged the lemons neatly, and called out in a trembling voice, "Fresh lemons! Fresh lemons for sale!" First, no one paid attention, but little by little people started stopping by. Before long, she had sold nearly her entire basket. Clutching the small but precious earnings in her hand, she felt a glimmer of hope. On the way back, her stomach ached with hunger. She stopped by a small rice roll stall near the market and ordered a portion. As she ate, she gently rocked her baby, silent tears streaming down her face. Today she had a place to sleep, food to eat, and a little money to survive. The future remained uncertain, but at least now, she knew what she had to do to keep going. After selling all her lemons, Dieu Han clenched the small bills in her hand, feeling a slight sense of relief. Though it wasn't much, at least today, she had earned it through her own hard work. On her way back, hunger gnawed at her stomach. As she passed a small food stall near the market, the aroma of freshly steamed rice rolls made her stop in her tracks. She hesitated for a moment before deciding to spend a small portion of her earnings on a proper meal. Sitting down at a small table, she ordered a serving of rice rolls. The stall owner, noticing the weary young woman holding a baby, added an extra piece of meat to her plate without saying a word. Dieu Han ate slowly, savoring the warmth spreading through her empty stomach, easing some of her exhaustion. As she ate, she gently soothed her child, adjusting the cloth wrapped around the baby. Her eyes were quiet but filled with determination. After finishing her meal, she returned to the small hut, carefully placing her child down before picking up a lemon. She cut it in half, squeezed the juice into a cup of water, and slowly sipped the refreshing sourness, feeling a small flicker of hope rise within her. Looking around, the hut was still simple, barely a shelter, but at least it was a place to return to. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind rushed through, dark clouds gathering ominously in the sky. Within moments, heavy rain poured down, seeping through the gaps in the roof, wind howling through the fragile bamboo walls. Dieu Han curled up in a corner, holding her baby close, pulling a cloth over the child to shield them from the cold. Rainwater splashed inside, soaking the small mat in the corner. She shivered from the chill, but still clutched her child tightly against her chest. She looked up at the leaky roof and let out a silent sigh. This storm was a reminder that she and her baby still had no real place of safety. Outside, the relentless rain continued to pour. Inside the broken hut, a young mother held her child close, enduring the bitter cold. Yet, despite everything, the fire of resilience in her eyes had not faded. Dieu Han had found shelter, but what about tomorrow? Hunger, cold, and countless hardships still lay ahead. Will she have the strength to overcome it all and fight for a better life for her child? Stay tuned for the next episode to follow Dieu Han's challenging journey of survival.
Cuộc đời là một con đường dài, nơi giấc mơ hòa tan thực tại. Buồng bước chân ta bắt xây dần bức tranh vẽ lên thử thách lớn. Những nỗi đau, niềm vui tạm bợ tạo nên muôn màu sắc cuộc đời. Dù cuộc sống đôi khi thử thách, những đam mê vẫn trực chào cháy. Hãy sống với đam mê cháy bỏng, đừng chờ đợi mà hãy thực hiện những khoảnh khắc quý giá lắm, đừng để thời gian trôi xa. Giữa bộn bề cuộc sống tìm chút bình yên, trong trái tim lặng lẽ nơi còn phiền. Giọt sương mai đọng trên lá xanh, đem lại niềm vui cuộc sống vắng tanh. Ánh sáng mặt trời dọi qua mây, dù mưa giông vẫn đang đong đầy. Trong lòng chứa đầy hy vọng, ngày mai sáng tươi chờ đợi ta. Bước đi trên con đường đầy hoa, dẫu khó khăn không lùi bước. Trong tim giữ trọn niềm tin, cuộc sống này mãi đẹp